Hey, namaste, I'm Kay, this is Ecstatic Self. Today I want to talk a little bit about why did I write my book, Journey to the Ecstatic Self. So in order to explain that, I actually need to take you back long before I started actually writing this book to 2016. I had just left my career as an actor. Yesterday's video was just about that thing. And I was lost. My whole life had been spent around, I'm being an actor, I'm making this happen. And then when I stepped away from that, it was like, well, what's next? Who am I, if not this? And so I struggled. I think any artist who isn't creating is going to struggle in life. And it took me about 2 years, but I stumbled onto this idea of writing a fantasy book. So 2018, I started writing a fantasy novel about a half-dragon that is bullied tremendously, experiences horrendous prejudice over not being fully human, about being different. It was very much an allegory about the queer experience. And I spent, I think, 9 months, 10 months writing and rewriting. I rewrote it from beginning to end about 5 times. Ended up hiring and working with a professional editor. And I felt super proud of it. And then I began the process of sending it off to literary agents and to publishers. And over the course of a couple months, I ended up sending out over 200 letters about the book and the first 2 or 3 chapters to a lot of them. And of those 200 and some, only 5 sent me back a personalized note asking for the full manuscript. And of those 5, none wanted to represent me. And I was devastated. I was crushed. There were so many dark experiences I had that felt so soul-crushing from that rejection. Because it didn't feel like they were just rejecting my book, they felt like they were rejecting me. And the life experiences I'd lived that made me write this book, and the trauma I went through that I poured into this book. And my husband said to me, he's like, the process of writing was so awesome for you. You were happy, you were motivated every single day, you loved the experience of creating. But then you got to this process of submitting it to agents and looking for validation, for looking for an authority figure to tell you that you're good enough, that's worthy. And it drew you into this really dark place. And the interesting thing is even the language is the same as when you were an actor, right? I want an agent. How can you have that same experience and bring all that good stuff you had with writing without having to deal with all that shit that's dragging you down, seeking validation? And so him and my editor were very much encouraging me to self-publish it. And I said, no. If 200 people don't want to represent it, then that's probably a sign that it needs more work. So I shelved it. And I began writing short stories and essays and got a couple small essays and literary pieces published. And then in this past February, 2020, it was the holiday of Mahashivaratri. It's an Indian holiday for Lord Shiva, the great yogi, the great meditator. And you traditionally practice this holiday by fasting for 24 hours. And so the night that the fast began, I had my last meal, did my Shiva meditation, went to bed. And I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, wide awake, with this entire book basically downloaded in my head. And so I got up and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I think I got like the first 2 chapters out before I went back to bed at like 5:45 in the morning. And over the next 5 days, I basically wrote the entire first draft of this book. And it evolved a lot, and a lot more got added and changed, but the structure was pretty much there. And I didn't know if it was going to end up being a book. I didn't know if I was going to end up wanting to self-publish it, but I kept working on it. And just because I'm a masochist, I sent out 2 query letters for that book and got 1 non-response and 1 form rejection letter like I'd gotten before, and I felt that same crushing that came from that. I said, F that. No, I'm not going to do that. If I keep developing this book, I'm just going to self-publish it. So I kept working and I kept working and I kept working. And the same time, I started to move into starting my own life coaching, spiritual life coaching practice. I've been doing corporate consulting work for 4 years, teaching connection, communication skills, empathy, and with coronavirus, that all stopped, and my company was moving fully online, and it was not something A, that interested me, and B, I just couldn't practically do in our small apartment. So all my work stopped, and it created an opportunity for me to say, let me develop this thing that I've been wanting to doing anyway, and that my husband's been wanting me to do anyway. And I started this YouTube series, and all of it started to feed together because the stuff I'd written about is the same thing I'm very much starting to work with, launching pad for what I work with people one-on-one and what I talk about in this YouTube series. And it became clear, I was like, I think this actually should be out there in the world. And my editor from my fantasy novel was available to work on it unexpectedly. And the coaching practice gave me the money to be able to hire a great cover designer and typesetter and to start to, put all those things in motion. And I have to say the process has been wonderful. All of those heartbreaks that I went through as trying to put that fantasy book out there and get the approval of agents and publishers, none of it was here because suddenly it was just me and the people I cared about, and me and the people who followed me on social media and love my YouTube videos and love the things I write, who are interacting with the book and saying, wow, thanks for the advanced copy. I love this. This is so meaningful. It's made a huge difference for me, and I can't wait to share it with other people. It's been such an affirming experience. So that's the impetus of how this book came to be. And also to share one other reason of this book came to be is I had met somebody at the beginning of 2020 on a work trip. Beautiful, beautiful human being. We connected really quickly. But he was somebody who was in the later stages of life, I want to say probably mid to late 60s. And he confided in me that he didn't really know who he was, that there was so much about his own identity that he had never really explored. And the life he'd created was starting to feel like it was a shell. And that he really needed to come to terms with who he really was. And so I had that brewing in the back of my mind. So as I was working on this book and developing it, I would write a chapter and send it over to him. And I very much had him in mind. This idea of how do you come home to your most vibrant self? How do you own your identity in every capacity, even the things that are uncomfortable, even the things that you don't want to admit, even the stuff that you find ugly? Because so long as you reject a part of yourself, you'll never be whole. Right? You cannot lop off a bit of you and say, yes, that part of there was not really me. This is my wholeness. You are inherently incomplete until you integrate that back in. So that's why I wrote Journey to the Ecstatic Self. I hope that's meaningful to you. I hope that inspires you to want to go check it out. It's available for pre-order in ebook and hard copy, but if you can't afford it or you just want a free copy, let me know. I'm happy to send you a PDF of the book. It'll be available in paperback and audiobook once it launches in November. But I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into me and my world and where this book came from and why I do it and why I do what I do. My goal is always to be of service and to help people, whether that's through my writing, through these videos, through one-on-one coaching, through being a good friend or partner or lover or son or dog and cat daddy, to do the best I can to make the world a little bit better. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm here every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Kay. This is Ecstatic Self. Namaste.